So in Nevada, there has been, since 2016, an internal struggle amongst the Democratic Party there between a progressive faction and a more establishment faction. The establishment faction was built by Harry Reid.
Right, it's still seemingly kind of tied with him as well.
Oh, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I think very much.
Actively
Very
so.
much so.
Yeah.
And the progressive faction was associated with Bernie Sanders. They clashed in 2016 a little bit. They clashed in 2020. This fight did not come out in the open. Many of the people in Bernie's campaign, the top members of his campaign, worked on Harry Reid's staff. In fact, in this Intercept piece, it cites Faz Shakir. He is the campaign manager. He worked in Harry Reid's office. Ari Rabenhoff, who also worked in both offices, deputy campaign manager, and National Policy Director Josh Orton, who's no longer with Sanders. He's now in the Labor Department. We should say producer emeritus of the Majority Report. Left here, went to work for Harry Reid, ultimately worked for Bernie Sanders. And that apparently kept the lid on this simmering sort of internal feud. Well, it turns out this past Saturday, the progressive wing of the Nevada Democratic Party won all of the leadership positions in this contested election. And then, and we should say, and this is sort of the funniest part, the progressive wing of the Democratic Party ran under a slate for party leadership known as the Nevada Dems Progressive Slate. The establishment Democratic Party candidates ran on a slate titled the Progressive Unity Slate.
Huh. Very fitting, and we should say that the Nevada Dems progressive slate, very heavy crossover with DSA. Apparently, all but one of the members of this were members of the Democratic Socialists of America. So this schism in Nevada is as indicative of the national progressive versus centrist schism that we're seeing.
I think to a certain extent, and the members of the Progressive Unity Slate, when they lost, apparently had been preparing for this loss, so they moved $450,000 out of the party's coffers and put it into the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee's account. And then, after they lost, the Progressive Unity Slate, they all resigned from the Nevada Democratic Party.
That is not very unifying.
That feels not unify-ish, right?
Yeah, I mean, you had to put your own spin on what I said, but that's fine.
Yeah, I just added to that.
Right, it was
I was
good.
backing you up on that. I was trying to be unified with you in that message.
Well, I'm taking all my money and I'm going home.
That they were not unified.
Actually, I'm going to give it to another program, David Pakman, potentially.
But it's interesting that, I mean, this is a prime example of progressive over a 5-year period, essentially 6-year period, organizing and out-organizing the establishment in this party and taking over the reins of the party. And I would imagine moving it in a more progressive direction. One would have hoped that the Democrats who were in the party before, were in these positions before, would have shown some loyalty to the Democratic Party and the democratic process, small d in the second instance, and stayed and helped. I mean, they put unity in their name.
Well, I mean, but that's the oh God, I almost said Orwellian, but I'm going to say it anyway. That's just kind of the Orwellian nature of it, and it's very indicative of the Democratic establishment on the national level. And it goes to show that money is very much involved. The people who are more towards the center have a lot more sway because of the fact that they have the ability to fundraise and have a lot more money at their disposal. And it also goes to show how really two groups on the progressive left have changed the conversation and have done such effective organizing that it's really caused a reckoning in the Democratic Party, and that's Justice Democrats and that's DSA.
Right.
And they deserve enormous amounts of credit because it's not just, voting for specific people, it's organizing and getting the right people on the ballots and on the tickets.
And we should say Justice Democrats, of course, is the organization that has been primarying a lot of Democrats across the country. He supported Jamal Bowman in his win, Cori Bush, I believe, and certainly AOC, and others across the country. They are gaining, strength in the Democratic Party.
And something very interesting is happening in Nevada, really. It's just like a contrast between labor and old school Democratic Party politics, and a lot of the young organizers in Nevada are Latino, and are kind of pushing up against the old guard. And so obviously all credit to the organizing efforts in Nevada.